So I've talked about the balanced Monster Rancher 2 a lot by now in this series, it's basically all I do. But more specifically, we've talked about Dragon and Arrowhead, monsters who got dramatic power spikes in DX through small system changes. And we've talked about Plant, who has a distinct and unique control game that is nearly non-functional in practice. But today we're talking about another archetype that we haven't actually touched on yet. In a game that can often feel like the outcome is unilaterally decided by the whims of random number generation, surely there's room for a type of character that can shirk that burden almost entirely. A monster with extremely high accuracy that can rely on landing its attacks time and time again. And as it happens, there is room for that, in the form of Hopper, a monster often regarded as one of the weakest in the game in casual play. But casual and competitive play are very different beasts, so I think it's time to sit down and figure out what Hopper's deal really is. As I said off the hop, Hopper is regarded as a pretty difficult monster to use in casual play. Even advanced training methods like drug training don't have the same powerful effect on him as they do on other monsters, and the main reason for this is that Hopper requires his special attacks to do any substantial damage. And to get access to special attacks, you need to make it to B rank in the first place. So if he's not doing any damage, your best bet is to be evasive and win the battle through attrition, but this is often a frustrating way to play casually. Investing everything into speed feels bad when you still inevitably get smoked by a 15% chance to hit, and as it turns out, Hopper's speed gains aren't actually even all that good. They're average. At that rate, you could just invest into speed with like a dozen other monsters and get similar or easier runs than you could with Hopper. On top of all of this, raising Hopper can feel like a chore due to the fact that he's required to unlock Zilla and Undine and Nighton by digging up the hot springs. Check out my video on unlocking every monster if you need more info on that. So people feel obligated to raise this little guy and watch the timer run out over and over as they slog their way up to rank B before they get access to anything that does actual damage. It's not a great gameplay experience for a lot of players, but Hopper has a couple of things going in his favor. He's got a good guts rate tied with Plant, giving him the third fastest in the entire game, and he's also got a couple of fast guts rate subbreeds like Metal Nerd, which push its guts rate even higher. And he's got a slew of extremely accurate techs, which when coupled with his high skill gains and fast guts rate mean you'll be landing a lot of attacks. This is what carves out his niche. Hopper excels at running out the clock with his long animations on techs that are very likely to connect and chip the opponent down. This means his opponents will have to choose their opportunities to hit back wisely, since a Hopper with 99 guts and a life lead can effectively scam the entire back half of a fight. You've got about 30 seconds to knock him out, or at least deal enough damage that he can't quite make the comeback. Not many monsters force their opponent's hand quite like Hopper does, but this is only really true with human control. Hopper suffers from the bad AI in Monster Rancher 2 more than almost any other monster. All of his techs are purpose-built and none of them are just generically good, which unfortunately is just about the worst attribute a monster can have in competitive Monster Rancher. He requires finesse to pilot properly, and the finesse on display in the Monster Rancher 2 AI is similar to that of Midjourney trying to draw hands. Hopper's basic techs are bad, but that's a given for every single fast guts rate monster we've looked at so far. Hook's numbers are fine for his guts rate, but the animation time is pretty lengthy for not much impact. It adds to his game plan and giving the opponent less time to act, but it's hardly a good move. Jab has significantly more accuracy, but it's 33% less damage, which is a massive drop given how low Hook's force is in the first place. Again, mostly used for running the clock, but definitely not for doing damage. Flick is a bit expensive given its low damage as well, but 11 hit is pretty good. Again, an extremely long animation time is both a blessing and a curse, but the impact of this move mostly boils down to just giving your opponent a guts lead. It doesn't really do much for Hopper in the long run. Rapid Flick is obscenely expensive for its damage output. 6.5 seconds is a really long animation time when you consider it's longer than a tenth of the entire match, and even though the 30 guts combined with this makes it even worse, I have a theory that given Hopper's ability to run the clock, the idea here was not to make it so cheap that it could be spammed in quick succession. As it stands, you can only use it 3 times in a row at max guts, which would still eat up about a third of the entire match timer. Even though this tech is not particularly good given the numbers, making it cheaper could potentially make it completely overtuned in a specific way that you don't often see in Monster Rancher 2. Flick combo drops 10 accuracy to instead focus on withering, and it tends to be a bit better for it. 38 guts is pretty expensive no matter how fast your guts regen is, and making sure your opponent isn't given a huge opportunity to build back a lead every time you use it is obviously a pretty big perk. It takes even longer than Rapid Flick, but you're going to be happier seeing combo in action more than its prerequisite. Jump Blow is your classic trash sharp tech. It's marginally accurate, but you're really banking on that crit to make it worth it. At least with a bad natured stress bonus, you'll see it proc about 35% of the time, but I mean, is that really enough? 2 Jump Blows is less accurate and more damaging, which is a staple of this kind of tech. Your options for spending 30 guts on Hopper are this and Rapid Flick, so I mean, pick your poison. Hopper's sharp techs also take a pretty long time to animate, but they're still significantly quicker than his hit techs, so there's definitely a line of differentiation between them, it's just that neither are reliable damage output. 3 jump blows really leans into the sharpness, pushing for a possible 50% crit rate. Given its 30 force, this is actually not terrible, but the -9 hit stops it from being a significant upgrade to the other 2 jumpers, and as we're about to see, if damage is your goal, this still probably isn't going to be your pick. Both Flick Combo and 3 jump blows are special techs, meaning you don't even get access to them before rank B. Either of these would probably be solid enough for helping you clean up the lower ranks on a new file without being a particularly overbearing power spike on Hopper, but instead your options are really limited to just Rapid Flick and 2 jump blows. That's it. I think this is why Hopper is so hated casually. He doesn't have much variety in his techs, and the variety he does have is dampened by the fact that none of that variety includes doing damage. But if damage is your goal, well, 1-2 jump blows isn't that either, but we're getting closer at least. Sorta. This is almost literally just a worse version of 3 jump blows, with the only real boons being the fact that you don't need to get the other 2 jump blow attacks to unlock it, and that it costs marginally less, though you could argue the 33 you're paying for this is less valuable than the 35 you pay for 3 jump blows. The real reason that anyone anywhere gets 1-2 jump blows is for the tech it unlocks. Hopper Combo is an actual honest-to-god nuke, and it is far and away Hopper's most damaging attack. Hopper does his best Ippo impression and kills nearly 8 seconds from the clock. In Japanese, this move is called Hopper Roll, which is a very obvious homage. But Moose, you're saying. Ippo's signature move is called the Dempsey Roll, and it's taken from real-life boxer Jack Dempsey. You think a real person did this shit and didn't get his face caved in for trying it? The Dempsey Roll in Ippo is like a fucking Canadian destroyer. This shit is not humanly possible with an unwilling participant. The real Dempsey Roll looked a little bit more like this. Anime isn't real life, except when it is. And lucky for you goons, the best channel on YouTube, Bonus High Tops, has you covered. Call now to get your very own Octopath Traveler body pillow. Want everyone to know how much of a degenerate you are? Want to scare away literally anyone unfortunate enough to make it back to your room? Nothing does it quite like your own Octopath Traveler body pillow. Don't like girls? Sucks to be you. Oh wait, no it doesn't, because my boy Bonus High Tops got you covered too. This is not a paid ad, I just think he makes incredible videos.
Your raft, my raft. Your bedroom, my fucking love-nasium.
I'm gonna have sex with your mother.
The Hopper script is feeling a little doom and gloomy, so I needed to spice it up, but I cannot stress enough. These are real. This is a real fucking thing he made. You can buy them with real money. I'm not going to, but like, you came into here thinking the Dempsey Roll existed like it did in Ippo, so you probably got a little bit of brain damage. And this pillow can give you a cushion to help reverse the effects of that. Can it really? Maybe. Can't make it worse. Hopper Combo has almost S force and an absurd -15 hit, making it a hell of a gamble. But I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. In AI vs AI, weaker monsters need to gamble to have a shot. It's what makes Mochi's best tech stuff that would never be picked up on any other monster, and Hopper Combo isn't much different. While in the hands of a human player, Hopper Combo actually complements Hopper's kit extremely well and gives you a great comeback option should you fail to build a big enough lead to run the clock, but for the AI it's kind of just a thing you always get because, I mean, you got nothing else. Hopper has 3 crossover techs which give him a bit of breed variety in competitive play. Mustachios, the Kato subbreed, has Phantom Claw, which is a very similar tech to Rapid Flick, except it's a bit cheaper and has a way shorter animation time. Being mixed with Kato absolutely tanks Hopper's guts regeneration rate, but it's worth considering if your goal is to make an accuracy-focused Hopper. Fairy Hopper gets access to Lightning, an expensive withering tech. Not very reliable, but given Hopper's extremely fast guts rate, the ability to rip 40 from your opponent has its benefits, even if you don't land it every time. This move has an unusual distinction in the fact that it is a crossover tech that actually every Hopper can learn through a quirk in how combination works. When you're combining monsters, the way the child inherits techs is very specific. If you take a monster with a lot of techs and make them the first parent, but the child ends up being a different main breed, it'll inherit a maximum of 1 tech from each errantry location that parent had collected techs from. Because Hopper has so few techs, he only has Lightning available in Pari Pari. So as an example, if you were to combine a Jill with Clap Attack, a withering attack you acquire from Pari Pari, as the first monster and a pure Hopper as the second, you could get a Snow Hopper with Lightning as the child. The tech still kinda sucks though, it's just interesting. And Fairy Hopper also gets access to Flame. A lot of people think this is a Draco Hopper crossover tech, but it's not. I don't know, man. Hopper is weird. Flame is a special intelligence attack that ends up being his second strongest in his entire kit. -16 makes the tech borderline unusable, as even if it does hit, it doesn't do nearly enough damage to make it worth the risk. 36 guts on Hopper isn't a huge investment, but you can only miss so many times before your opponent has built a lead they can't possibly lose. Hopper's intelligence attacks are bad, which is a bit unfortunate given his intelligence stat gains are just as good as his power gains. It kind of feels like a waste. So what are we doing with builds? Oh man. Flick Combo is probably his most consistently good tech, which unfortunately means you gotta pick up its 2 prerequisites, which can feel like liabilities given how little damage they do. Hopper combo is extremely risky, so players don't always pick it up, but I really don't think you have a lot of choice in the matter, especially if your goal is to actually win. But the fun thing about Hopper is that the techs aren't really important. They're all kind of crap. The real decision you have to make with Hopper is speed or tank. Hopper's guts rate and good incidental withering make him a perfect anger user, meaning that he's arguably just as viable running high defense as he is running high speed, maybe even more so. Hopper is one of the more viable tanks in the game, which is really funny given its stature, especially compared to something like Golem or Zilla. One of these guys can take a hit. Guess which one? And just as an addendum, by viable I mean in comparison to a speed build, they're both equally barely usable. Springer is the Metalner subbreed, and it's the best Hopper most of the time. A 7 guts rate and access to grit makes it an ideal tank candidate. Bloody Eye has the Metalner fast guts rate of 6, which is an absurd level of resource generation, but it's still somehow not enough to make him a threat. A lack of access to grit can make him even more inconsistent regardless of him being able to attack constantly. If you desperately want to avoid Rapid Flick and Flick, you can go with Mustachios and Phantom Claw, but just be warned that the slower guts rate really hurts when you're swinging his more damaging techs like Hopper Combo and 1-2 jump blows, since misses matter a lot more, as well as making tank builds overall a lot weaker. There's no regenerative safety net for Mustachios like there is for Springer. It makes sense that Hopper is often maligned by casual fans given everything we've talked about. As a veteran of a hobby, it can be really hard to empathize when a new player complains about the difficulty of something that feels like second nature, but it's worth it to take the time and effort to try and understand where they're coming from. Hopper is not an ease of use character and has a defined focus with manual control. If you're not playing him with intent to run out the clock, you could find yourself having trouble. And running the clock is not really anyone's first idea of a win condition when they see a life bar they can deplete instead. It's sort of tragic how Hopper has the potential to turn the PvP game into a round of solitaire and completely control the pace of a match when he's so wildly inconsistent and struggles to get off the ground in AI vs AI fights. His niche is unique, but maybe not the most interesting or fun to new players. Learning how to play makes his weakness almost negligible, but he's undoubtedly got some of the most glaring flaws of any monster, especially early in the game. Playing to win isn't always playing for fun, and Hopper needs to play to win if it wants a chance. Hey guys, thanks for watching another rundown. I really like Hopper. I think he's a cute little guy. I really like his whole shtick of constantly attacking and running the clock, but it just doesn't work, unfortunately. If you like this content and you want to see more of it, consider joining the Patreon. There's some cool perks there. Or you can check me out on Twitch. I stream 3 days a week. Or, just like and subscribe here. It helps. Thanks.